But, we're in this series, and we're going through this portal and discovering us in the story of God. We're looking into it, and we're looking into these Bible stories. They're not just kind of like little stories that were written for children. This is human history being worked out with God, in interaction with God, with the story of God. And so what we're doing is we're looking at these stories, and we're finding ourselves in the story. We're finding out that, these people weren't too dissimilar from us. They are very much like who we are. And this whole Bible narrative, this narrative of God, really was written for us, and that we're actually written into this narrative. So we're looking at their weaknesses, their failures, their strengths, their success. We're going to leave no stone unturned. But what we're really looking at deeply is the quality of the relationship with God. What was it? What was it that, even in the middle of all the failures and mistakes, what was it that just kind of connected them with God and how they interacted with God? So today we're going to go through the portal, and we're going to be going into Babylon, and we're going to be talking about three guys: Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, these guys are going to give us a really good example because I couldn't find any dirt on them. I checked, I looked around, we searched their emails to see if they, had like a porn habit or something like that, I couldn't find anything bad on them, but I will tell you this about them. Their life was, hell was breaking out around them, okay? I mean, it was just chaotic where they were. And I thought, well, okay, that's us. We know what this is like. We could find ourselves in this story. And let me just say, as I go through this story, it would be really easy for you to think that somebody else needs to be listening to this message, okay? That usually happens a lot. Don't elbow your husband or your wife. I don't want you thinking that this is a political message, because you could easily say, oh, well, that's about America, and that's about Donald Trump, and that's about this government and this political party and all that. This is not about that. So I'm asking you to listen to it for you, where you are in the middle of the story. Otherwise, we're going to lose what we can learn. So Daniel and his three companions were taken into Babylon. Now, the reason why they were taken into Babylon is God had this relationship with Israel, but part of it was predicated on hey, it's kind of like a marriage. We got to get along, and, you follow me, and I'll give you all these blessings, but if you decide you're going to follow after other gods, well, then I'm going to give you into the nations of the other gods. And that's exactly what happened. So Jerusalem gets attacked, and the people of Israel get kind of like really crushed, and then some of them are taken back into Babylon. Well, Daniel and his three companions are a part of the group that are brought back to Babylon, and they are forced to serve in the Babylonian and Persian courts of their time. So we got these three guys. They are taught the literature of Babylon, but one of the interesting things that they're given is these names, because these aren't their birth names. These are not their Hebrew names. Shadrach, that they're giving, for one of them, it means the command of Akuah. And Akuah was the Babylonian moon god. But originally, his name meant Yahweh has been gracious. Okay, so we see something that's beginning to play out. Let me just show you the next one. Meshach. In this Babylonian language, this means who is like Akuah. But his original Hebrew name meant who is what Yahweh is. Then Abednego, his Babylonian name means servant of Nabu, who was the god of wisdom. But originally, his name meant Yahweh has helped. So one of the things the Babylonians tried to do immediately with these young men was to strip Yahweh out of their identity. The immediate thing they wanted to do is to pull the memory of Moses and David and where they were from culturally, and to drag it out of their souls, to pull it out of their lives. So they were removed from their homes. It was removed from their culture. They had to learn to speak another language. They had their names changed. And they were challenged right down to what they would eat. I mean, so Nebuchadnezzar, who's the king at the time, he's smart. His whole idea is to utterly reprogram their identity. And so he does all this indoctrination to strip Yahweh from their lives, to strip God out of their lives. Begin to try to find yourself in that narrative about the life that we experience and how it seems to try to strip God out of our lives. So here's the background. Nebuchadnezzar, he's the king of Babylon. Babylon's amazing. I mean, it's just like the nation of the time. And he has this dream, and in this dream, he sees the progression of a bunch of empires that are going to rise up on the earth. But the head of this man in this dream that he has represents his Babylonian kingdom. So what he does is that with this vision of the future, he makes a human-like image out of gold that is 90 feet tall. And the head just happens to have his face on it because it represents his kingdom, and it's kind of like, so he has this giant 90-foot, I mean, that's a pretty big thing. I mean, I think our ceilings are only about 26 feet tall, so you just kind of add that up. That's a pretty big thing. So he makes this big statue, and then he makes this law to go along with this image. It says, then the herald loudly proclaimed, to you the command is given, O peoples, nations, and men of every language, that at the moment you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the lyre, the trigon, the psaltery, the bagpipe, and all kinds of music, you are to fall down and to worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king has set up. But whoever does not fall down and worship shall immediately be cast into the midst of a furnace of blazing fire. It's like, okay, the line has been drawn in the sand. This is what culture's about. This is where we're heading as a culture. And so it's kind of like this is all set up. The story continues. Therefore, at that time, when all the people heard the sound of the horn, the flute, the lyre, the trigon, the psaltery, the bagpipe, and all kinds of music, all the peoples, the nations, and men of every language fell down and worshiped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Okay. When I first read this years ago, I was kind of really condescending in this story, because what kind of weak-minded loser would just let somebody tell them what they're supposed to believe, and then they could kowtow to it? You know what I mean? Who does that? It's like, come on, get a backbone, you know. What kind of culture is this? And I'm looking at it. It's like, so let me get this straight. So you're so weak-minded that they make this giant statue, and then when he says, everybody bow, as soon as the music begins to play, down you go. You just roll right over and you go with it. And I'm just like, what a weak culture. I mean, am I right? I mean, it's who does that? Have a brain. Have a conscience. And I know maybe you're like me in that this is kind of like mindless culture that's so easily to be manipulated to capitulate to an outside influence. I mean, who does that? Mindless, spineless, weak people that would just roll over. But after I kind of worked through my condescension and my self-exaltation and my boasting, I realized I might be in this story. I thought I would never give in to a picture of reality that's not God's. I wouldn't dare do that. I would never be swayed by culture to yield to anything. I would never look at an image of success and bow to it. I would never let anyone play me. And I have to say, yes, I would. And yes, I do. All the time. And if I'm not mistaken, I think maybe you do too. An image of the future that makes you bow to fear. I mean, when you heard that we dropped bombs on Iran, what bowing happened inside of you? When you woke up this morning and heard the news. When you hear about war in the Middle East, when you hear about problems in our economy and all the different things that go on, when you hear about riots and discord in our nation, when the image of confusion and chaos rises up, what is your first response? When the music plays, what do you do? Where do you go? Do you go to CNN? Do you go to Fox? Where do you go to? And what happens is the music of discord begins to play in your life. What happens to you? Do you find yourself bowing to fear in that moment? How about an image of success rises up during your lifetime? And maybe you're in that place. Maybe you're in your mid-20s to like your mid-50s. And an image rises up of what it looks like to be successful. And then you find yourself buying a certain kind of car to match the image, a certain kind of house, living in a certain kind of neighborhood, finding yourself sending your kids to a certain kind of school. Because this image rose up of what it looks like to be a 30, 40, or 50-year-old man and woman family and be successful. And you find yourself bowing to that image, that expectation, and then aligning your life to it because you're being played. We wouldn't do that. Maybe an image of threat that forfeits your ethics just to get along. We were in a country just a few years ago that we were required to sign pieces of paper with HR in order to keep our jobs about what our stands were on different things, to say that we will get along with what everybody's being taught, and we will affirm everything. And we capitulated. We did whatever I can do to keep my job. What kind of mindless culture? Mine. Ours. Maybe the music of affirmation entices you to bow. Does anybody else have like one or two people that just get into you more than anybody else? I mean, like, I don't really care about what 90% of people think about me, but there's one or two people that, the way you can tell is you get nervous when they're around and you talk too much. And you start to share about your life, about all the good things that you're doing. Hey, man, I just want to tell you, this is going on. It just has great. It's like, and if you've ever been in your own mind, you're like, what am I doing? What is the influence that this person has on me? And they might not even want the influence. But their affirmation is so important, you bow to the music to get the affirmation from them. What kind of mindless culture would do this? Mine, me. I would do this. How about the melody of getting along, even when it makes you compromise? And I think we all get played. Sometimes the sound and the image is not even out there. Sometimes the music and the image is in here. And when that image makes us bow in here, you know what we call that? We call it an addiction. Is that there's something that we just play out and we bow to it. I call it the smell of bacon effect. I mean, bacon. I mean, it's like a beautiful thing. I mean, it's just like it comes down from the heavens or some other place. But what is it about bacon? And I'm watching my diet and I'm trying to be heart conscious. I'm trying to control everything in my life to make sure my heart keeps working and life continues. But all of a sudden, the smell of baking wafting through the kitchen and into the bedroom. You decided you're going to sleep in until the bacon smell arrives. and the sound of the psaltery and the trigon. I don't even know what a trigon is, but it begins to play, and you find yourself putting your slippers on. Yes, I'm that old. And I put slippers on, and I go downstairs, and the smell of bacon, and then the fight begins, and it's like, what is that? We all let the sound of the music into our heads. We allow the image of exaltation, and we bow to it. Losing our religion one bow at a time. So the story continues. For this reason, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and brought charges against the Jews. They responded and said to Nebuchadnezzar the king, "O king, there are certain Jews whom you have appointed over the administration of the province of Babylon, namely Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, have disregarded you, and they do not serve your gods or worship the image which you have set up." Now, I looked into this little passage here because I was interested about the phrase that it says, there are certain Jews whom you have appointed. And it's like there are certain Jews. And I wasn't sure, was it certain Jews that were appointed or certain Jews that are appointed, that are appointed, that don't bow. And from the fact that there are no other Jews being named, it is possible that all the other Jews are bowing right along. Everybody is just getting along, going along, just so that everybody can keep their jobs and everybody just gets along with their culture and nobody gets angry. It's like, you want us to bow to that? No problem, no big deal. As long as I get my 401k and everything keeps on going. But there were certain Jews that they didn't bow. And so Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego are those certain Jews. See, so often we're told that we're to keep quiet about our faith. So often we are told to just blend in with our culture. Don't look any different, don't act any different. Don't watch any different. Don't spend any different. Don't spend your time any different. That your faith is just kind of like, just between you. Poor Jordan Peterson, God bless him. I love the guy. But he really messed up in that debate with 20 atheists because he was arguing the Christian point of view. It was called One Christian versus 20 Atheists. But unfortunately, he did not want to declare that he was a Christian in public. When the atheist challenged about, what do you believe in? Who do you believe? Are you a Christian, Jordan? He said, that's none of your business. It's a private affair. He capitulated. Probably one of the smartest men in the Western Hemisphere. Capitulated. And it happens so often that in order to get along, in order to not screw up our audience, because it would have screwed up his audience. He would have automatically gotten labeled as an evangelical, and he would have lost half his audience. He would no longer be classified as a secularist. He would all of a sudden be now a Christian, and there would be a whole group of people that wouldn't have listened to him. But there was a point when you have to decide, are you going to bow to the music? Are you going to cave? Are you going to respond mindlessly every time somebody tells you to do something? Are you willing to bow so often that you lose your religion? What a credit that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that their faith was something that others were aware of. It's like, yeah, those guys, they're not bowing. I think it's interesting. They're not bowing, but they added on to it. They're not serving your gods. They're not worshiping your gods. I mean, it's like they connected the dots. That if you don't bow, there's something internally going on in you that's different than what's going on in everybody else. Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, they were going to be okay with that. And you got to remember, these are guys that were specially appointed to a job. They got some good jobs. All the other schmucks are over there doing their thing. But these guys, they're in the royal courts. They're running things. They got stuff to lose. They've got houses to lose. They've got positions to lose. Then Nebuchadnezzar, when he heard this news, was enraged and the anger gave orders to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Then these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar responded and said to them, Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? I just listen to that. Do you really believe in Yahweh? Is it true you're not going to bow to your culture? Is it true? Well, I need to hear it from your mouth. And I love it. The demand of society to know what are we true about? And he's demanding from them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? And I love this next play. Now, if you're ready, he doesn't wait for their answer. He's like, we must have had a misunderstanding. The email, it was a bad email. I'm sorry I didn't get it. So let's do this. Let's get ready again. If you're ready, we can resolve this whole problem. There's been a lot of confusion, HR. It's just kind of something got lost. But if you're ready, at the moment you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the lyre, the trigon, the psaltery, the bagpipe, and all kinds of music, to fall down and worship the image that I have made, very well. But if you do not worship, you will immediately be cast into the midst of the furnace of blazing fire. And what God is there who can deliver you out of my hands? If you're ready, and I thought about that phrase, and it's like, if you're ready. And I thought, it's like, what am I ready for? What, and I don't mean good. I mean, what is my next compromise? How ready am I for it? Am I readying myself for my next compromise? He's like, okay, now that we got this out there, we got a warning out there, now that I've got a threat out there, now if we're ready, if I've kind of like softened you up a little bit, gotten you move a little bit off of what your stand was, if you're ready, we can move on. So let me ask you, what are you ready to do next in your life? I mean, what are you preparing your soul right now for the next moment? What are you ready for? Are you ready for your next compromise? Are you ready for your next binge? Are you getting ready to get out of your marriage and get into another relationship? What are you getting ready for? What do you because the thing is compromises don't just knock us over the head. We get ready for them. We prepare ourselves for them. And what are you preparing yourself for? Are you preparing yourself for your next win, or are you preparing yourself for your next loss? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to give you an answer concerning this matter." It's like, hold on, turn the music down. You could play the song again. We don't have to give you, we're not open for it. And so I was thinking about this clarity that they had, and that's kind of like what I think God's talking to us about is, they said, "Oh, Nebuchadnezzar, we don't need to give you an answer." And I was thinking about this clarity, and I kind of like wanted to come up with what is this? And so I came up with this phrase, and it may not mean anything to you right now, but let me just say that they have what I call prevenient resolve. I know you don't use the word prevenient a lot, but it means the idea of preparing yourself for a next moment. It's the preparation that you do up front because an outcome that you want to happen, you're preparing yourself for that. And I think that's different than just saying you got to have resolve. It's kind of like, no, you got to have prevenient resolve. It means you got to be preparing your mind now for the resolve you want to have in the moment, whatever that moment is going to be, because you don't know what that moment's going to be. You didn't probably know when you woke up this morning that we were dropping bombs on Iran. And so you might have been terrified if you didn't have a prevenient resolve, meaning that you hadn't prepared yourself for tomorrow's moment with resolve in the day. It's kind of like resolve before the moment arrives. That's what they did. It's a made-up mind. How many compromises could have been avoided if we had resolved the issue before the moment arrived? Seriously, how many moments compromise if we had already had a prevenient resolve? We had already prepared ourselves. Let me give you an example of this in my life. You may think this is deeply personal, but that's okay. It's what we do here. So I am a faithfully married man of 38 years. Some number like that in there. 37 is okay. I have never cheated on my wife. And it's not because I'm not the cheating kind of man, okay? I don't have any DNA that kind of gives me a leaning towards faithfulness. I particularly like ladies. I mean, ever since I was a young man, I've tried to get the attention of women, whether it was, doing Rodgers and Hammerstein shows in high school while everybody else was playing football. I would do whatever I could to get the attention of the ladies. Guys, if you're playing football to get the ladies, you're wasting your time. Do drama. That's where they are. And there's no other dudes there, so you get them all. Man, it was a great strategy. I don't know how I came up with it at such a young age. But how do you have so what do I do? Well, I was telling a couple of people this, is that I don't want to commit adultery against my wife. Okay, that's why I am resolved not to commit adultery against my wife. It's like, cool. All right. So what am I going to do to prepare myself, the prevenient resolve? What am I going to do up front so that this resolve doesn't get compromised? Every single day. So I was riding to work the other day, and as I was riding to work, I was, way back here, and on Beast Ferry Road, people like to walk and like to exercise. And there are ladies out there, and they got their little yoga pants on and their sports bra and feeling really good about themselves, and that's cool. Great. I mean, I'm glad. Okay. And but I am way back here. But all of a sudden, I've got good eyes, and so I'm like, oh, there's a woman up there. So a subroutine runs in my brain. And here's what the subroutine is. That's not your wife. She's not giving you or offering you anything. Do not look, or you're a voyeur. And the Lord has given you someone very beautiful for you to fill your eyes with. And so, as soon as I saw that woman, I was like, so the old adage, like, as long as you take one look, as long as you look and don't touch, it's all okay. Well, you know what? That's not prevenient resolve. So here I go through the subroutine. Boom, boom, boom. It's not my wife. It's not mine to take. It's not mine to look. It's God has given me to look. Lord Jesus, thank you for what you give me to look. And I'll tell you what, I didn't see the woman again. I don't know what she looked like or anything like that, because I had this subroutine that I ran in my mind. It's like, why? Because my resolve was to have an intimate, passionate sexual relationship with my faithful wife until I'm 85. 86, 85, okay? I'm hoping. And it's like, well, how do you do that? At 66, you have a subroutine of prevenient resolve. And it's like, and so people will ask me, so you and Susan seem to do so well. And it's like, well, it's because I've got this in operation. But if I didn't have this in operation, do you know how easy it would be for me to fall? That all of a sudden it'd be like, well, you're a pastor. Being a pastor is not resolve, it's a profession. You're a man of God. Now, the Bible's loaded with a lot of men of God who are cheating on their wives. So, these guys had prevenient resolve. We don't need to talk about this, Nebuchadnezzar. We're not creating the ethic in the moment. This is already in us. So don't bother playing the music. Listen, as a resolve is not dependent or defined by the immediate outcome. If it be so, listening to the threat of Nebuchadnezzar throwing him into the fire, if it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us out of the furnace of blazing fire, and will deliver us out of your hand, O king. This is the part I love the best. But even if he doesn't, let it be known to you, O king, that we are not going to serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. Like, listen, we're not changing our resolve based upon the outcome. And how many of us did not get the outcome we wanted from God and we changed our resolve? That it didn't work out exactly like the way that we wanted it to, and therefore we find out that our resolve was actually outcome-based. They were willing to lose their lives, but not willing to lose their religion. So where are you at today? What are you willing to lose? Or are you willing to lose your religion? So these guys are amazing. There are all kinds of images that we bow down to in front of. I mean, all kinds of stuff. We bow down to social status pressure. You know, I mean, can you just imagine being a junior high student again? Golly, those guys are scary. They're ruthless. They got no rules. But could you imagine being a 13-year-old girl in this culture, a 12-year-old boy in this culture, and the pressure? And you don't just have the pressure of the kid next to you. Mom and dad have supplied you with technology to get pressure from the ends of the earth. So you may be prettier than the girl next to you, but just go down your Instagram page. You know, you'll find a AI robot girl that you cannot measure up to at all. We bow down to the images of fear. We bow down to our egos. We bow down to our weak self-image. I tell you, another one that we bow down to is loneliness. And I'm just going to kind of take a little detour here, particularly with ladies. Sometimes you date the doofiest guys. I don't get it. You're so sharp, you're so smart, you're so got it going on. But the loneliness song just plays, or you have some aunt who says, when are you going to get married? You know, the oven's not going to stay on the whole, much longer, girl. And everybody's playing this song about life passing you by, and then you find yourself dating some doofus. And I'm guessing it works the other way around. But a lot of us, because of loneliness, we bow. I know he's got problems, but, let's be honest, you're not in love with him. You're just afraid of being alone. And we make decisions like this all the time. What are you willing to lose? So let me read you the rest of the story. I'm going to read most of it because of the amount of time. Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with wrath, and his facial expressions was altered toward Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He answered by giving orders to heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually heated. So just expect when you don't cave, the heat will get turned up. He commanded certain valiant warriors who were in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in order to cast them into the furnace of the blazing fire. Then these men were tied up in their trousers, their coats, their caps, and their clothes, and were cast into the midst of the furnace of blazing fire. So basically, they were wicked. For this reason, because the king's command was urgent and the furnace had already been made extremely hot, the flames of the fire slew those men who carried out Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. But these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell into the midst of the furnace of the burning fire still tied up. Then Nebuchadnezzar was astounded and stood up in haste and said to his high officials, wasn't not 3 men we cast into the midst of the fire? And they replied to the king, certainly, O king. And he said, look, I see 4 men loosed and walking about in the midst of the fire without harm, and the appearance of the 4th is like the son of the gods. Then Nebuchadnezzar came to the near of the door of the furnace of blazing fire, and he responded and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, come out here, you servants of the Most High God. Can come here. Then Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego came out of the midst of the fire. The satraps and their prefects and the governors and the high officials gathered around and saw in regard to these men that the fire had had no effect on their bodies, nor was the hair of their head singed, nor were their trousers damaged, or even the smell of fire upon them. And Nebuchadnezzar responded and said, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servants who put their trust in him, violating the king's command. See, this dude's paying attention. He knows what was at stake. Violating the king's command and yielded up their bodies so as to not serve or worship any god except their God. Wow. Yielded up their bodies. You see how far the fight goes? It may put you at war with your body. It may put you at war with your nature. It will definitely put you at war with your culture. So what is playing you? What is getting you to bow? Revenge? Anger? Anybody here, don't put up your hand, but anybody here get played by anger? I mean, you get angry, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh man, wish I could have that 30 seconds back. Jealousy? What does jealousy make you do? Insecurity? Fear? How about comfort? I'm at that age, and if you're my age, you know what I'm talking about. You just want status quo to continue. Just want to keep it as it is, man. Get me to 85. I don't care what the heck everybody else does. It's like, maybe it's competing with other people. Maybe it's loneliness. Do you have a prevenient resolve? Or are you just hoping that when the moment comes, you're gonna just stand for God? Or does the resolve change depending on the outcome that is offered? See, I'm no different than these people. I remember I was just 19, 20 years of age. Good Catholic boy. Not so good, but Catholic. And so I remember I was in the military and I was dating this girl, and I come from a big family. We love kids, we love life, all that, was raised pro-life, all that. Man, I'm Catholic, and it's like, and then all of a sudden, my cute 19-year-old girlfriend was pregnant. Yeah. And I can remember us just scared to death, and I was like 20 years of age. I'm like, man, I'm not ready for this. I got a lot more girls I want to sleep with. I don't want to marry nobody. And it was like, and there was this man who was about 35 years old. He was in the military with me, and he put his arm around me, and he said to me, Paul, God doesn't want you to be unhappy. And he slipped $150 in my hands, because that's what it cost at that time. And he slipped on and he goes, God wants you to be free. So I went back to my girlfriend, because we didn't have $150 between us. And I paid for what needed to be done in the moment. And I can remember her coming out crying because she had hated the moment. And I remember her saying to me, "You had a son." And it's like, what happened to me? It's because I had no resolve in the moment. When it got hard, when it got difficult, when the music played, I bowed. And how many of us, we're bowing every time life gets difficult? Whenever we get lonely, whenever we get angry, whenever we get jealous, whenever we see somebody have a lifestyle that we should have in order to show ourselves successful to people around us, and we cave and we bow to it. We are more than conquerors through Christ. That's who we are. And too many of us are letting that identity be changed. We have been forgiven. We have been made secure. We have been loved. We have been adopted. We have been justified. We have been redeemed. We have been reconciled. We have been chosen. In Christ, we are victorious, filled with joy and peace, and granted true meaning in life. And even when we blow it, He is faithful and just to forgive us and to cleanse us from all our unrighteousness. So why are we bowing to anything or anyone? Father God, I know that all of us here, there's none of us here that haven't bowed. And I know everybody here is here because, well, for the most part, Yahweh is God. But unfortunately, God, a lot of us, Yahweh is God as long as the status quo is status and maintained. But God, you want us to be deeper men and women than that. You want us to have a prevenient resolve. You want us to have already have the answer. And that when we are asked the question, if you are ready, we know exactly what we're ready for. And we know exactly how we're going to respond. The King, our God, can save us, but if He doesn't, know this: we will not bow, we will not worship your gods. Yahweh is our God. We are willing to lose our lives, but we will not lose our religion, our faith, our trust in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Let me invite you to come to the table of Christ, whether you have been faithful or unfaithful. And for me, it depends on what hour of the day it is. That this table of Christ, this is your bow. This is your worship. This is your declaration. This is the song of heaven that is being played. This is our God. This is our King.